Hello, everybody, and welcome to the debut episode of the TouchDownUnder podcast. I'm Jack, your host, and I'm joined by Emilian.
Hi, great to be here. Really excited for this.
Anthony.
It's been a long time coming. Can't wait to get into it.
And Arush.
Been looking forward to this for a long time. Let's get into it.
Alright, so we have ranked all 16 2020 Thursday Night Football games, and we posted our rankings on our Instagram page, and on today's podcast, we'll be going through our rankings. So without further ado, we'll kick it off with number 16. We had the Dolphins at Jacksonville in week 3. Now, this is Tua Tagovailoa's primetime debut. I don't really think it's a very appealing game. It doesn't have many appealing features. Obviously, there's the quarterback battle between Tua and Minshew, but I don't think that's overly appealing. What do you think, Emilian?
Yeah, there's really nothing special here. I mean, early season matchup. It's week 3. Really no implication in this game. And we don't even know if Tua's going to start. Ryan Fitzpatrick could still be the starting man by week 3.
Correct.
So there's really nothing here for me that drags me in as a viewer.
Anthony?
Yeah. I reckon, on the Jacksonville point of view, I reckon on paper they're pretty evenly matched. Just, I think if I was to choose a winner here, if I had to make a prediction on a winner, I think it'd be Miami, but still pretty close. I just reckon in the long term, losing Calais Campbell and AJ Boye might be too big of losses for an already quite depleted defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even if Tua does start, I really don't see anything interesting happening in this game at all.
Yeah.
It's the first time you see each team's rookies, and so CJ Henderson, Caleb Von Chason, Livers Gishonal, and obviously Tua, Austin Jackson, and Noah Igbenogany. Igbenogany, yep. Sorry.
It's all good. Yeah, I know.
At 15, we have the Broncos at the Jets. That game is in week 4. I think it has the potential to be tight. I don't think it's going to be an overly offensive game, especially with the two quarterbacks. I don't necessarily know if Drew Lock is a franchise quarterback. I don't think we've seen enough of him to be able to determine that. I think the defense of the Jets is quite good, and so is the Broncos, so I think it's going to be a defensive slog. Emilian?
Yeah, so neither of these quarterbacks are proven. Sam Darnold, he's not in a good system right now offensively, doesn't have any weapons. Drew Lock does have the weapons, but he's just not proven at all. As you said, we haven't seen enough of him. He does have, however, he's got Noah Fant, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy. That could be a very dangerous offense. But again, early week in the regular season, nothing special about this game.
Yeah, the point I was want to raise about this game, obviously going to be quite defensive, what I reckon. But I'd like to highlight the duo between Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, which we saw a few seasons ago before Bradley Chubb got injured last season. I reckon this is one of the more underrated duos. I reckon at their peak, it could be very dangerous. Certainly, I don't think the Jets can handle it.
Yeah.
This could be a game just to prove how vicious the Denver defense truly is. Get back to their glory days.
Yeah, just following on from Anthony there, I personally think the Jets are just as good as their offensive line, their offense, and even using their first round pick on Mekhi Becton and bringing in a good center in Connor McGovern, I really don't see Le'Veon Bell or Sam Darnold having an easy time with a bottom 5 ranked offensive line.
I agree. That was number 15. At number 14, we have the Patriots at the Rams in week 15. I think the appeal of this game really depends on whether these teams bounce back from last season. Obviously, the Rams had a pretty down year considering their Super Bowl appearance the year before. It'll be interesting to see how Sean McVay and co rebound from that disappointment. And if they do, this does have the potential to be a good game, especially if Belichick can work out the Patriots quarterback situation. Million?
Yeah, so for me, these teams, they're not what they used to be when they met in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The Patriots obviously lost Brady, and there's a lot of question marks on that offense. You only have Julian Edelman, that's really a big name that you can sort of draw attention to right now. And on the Rams, they lost Gurley, didn't have a good season last year because of the injury. And I don't believe Jared Goff is a great quarterback. They lost Brandon Cooks as well. I just don't see this being interesting at all, honestly.
Yeah, well, I'd like to highlight New England in this game. I don't think the Rams will be making any meaningful playoff push in this season, let alone have anything meaningful left in the season by week 15. But the AFC East is still. We talk a lot about the Bills. They're pretty hyped up to have success in the division, but I still think it's very wide open. A lot more wide open than people think. It's been dominated by New England for years, and it's still as of the start of the season, still is dominated by New England. I reckon this game could be important if they were to secure a playoff position, maybe win a division. Depends how the Bills go. This could be quite important in terms of that, I reckon.
Yeah, would have been a great game to watch last season as a Super Bowl rematch, but this season doesn't seem too appealing to me, and unless, I think out of the two teams, the Patriots are most likely to make a playoff push just because of how competitive the NFC West is. I don't see the Rams being able to overtake the 49ers or the Seahawks in that division.
As much as Jared Goff has had his struggles, I don't think we should rule out how he's able to perform at times in that scheme. I think with the 7th playoff spot available, I think the Rams do have a chance to be in that playoff picture come the business end of the season. So I think, especially with, as we say, the Patriots, they're still the Patriots, there's still Belichick there, they still have that really great defense. They've got, Gilmore, the McCourty brothers, all that. So I think there's still definitely playoff implications with this game. I think it has the potential to be rated higher, but we just have to see how these two teams come out at the start of this season.
Yeah.
At number 13, we have a division matchup, the Bengals at the Browns in week 2. It is the Bengals' second of 2 primetime games this season, and of course we'll be seeing Joe Burrow against Baker Mayfield, so 2 young quarterbacks there going at it. We'll see some pretty elite wide receivers on display. We've got AJ Green, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Tyler Boyd. I think, obviously it's a division rivalry. I think there's a, chance for this to be a pretty appealing game, but, it just depends on how much the Bengals have improved and whether the Browns are able to take, it to the next level this season.
Yeah, so for me, really, it's all about that Bengals offensive line versus the Browns defensive line, led by Myles Garrett especially. Burrow is a great rookie going into this season, but as long as that offensive line is bad, he won't really have much of a chance, despite having Tyler Boyd and AJ Green with him on the offense. It's going to be a fun division game, but it's too early in the season for me to expect Burrow to perform to all this hype, to live up to all this hype this early on in the season, if you know what I mean.
I reckon this game, obviously, a lot of talk around Joe Burrow making his debut in primetime.
Yeah.
I reckon this is still obviously the battle of Ohio. No matter how these teams track in terms of their records, no matter where it is in the season, there'll be a lot of blood in this game. They'll be very hotly contested. I reckon if both teams stay consistent fully, we could be seeing Mayfield versus Burrow become a bit of a household rivalry.
Yeah.
I hope this could be the start of something we see for many years.
Yeah. I believe that there is definitely talent on both sides of the ball, but I think it's too early to tell what's to come for the 2020 season for either franchise. Just the fact that it's in week 2.
Yeah.
I feel like this game is ranked where it is probably because it's one of those fun division games.
Yeah.
Like, apart from that, I don't see much entertainment arising from this game.
I do think the game has stakes. It's obviously week 2, so both fan bases will still have hope, with this season. So I think it's not as if it's like a late season game with nothing on the line. I think there is definitely stakes to this game. I think that'll make it, as Anthony said, hotly contested. So hopefully we see a pretty good, level of play.
Yeah.
At number 12, we have another division game, the New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles in week 7. I think the Giants will make a slight jump from their 4-12 2019 campaign. I think Daniel Jones will improve again. I think he had a pretty promising rookie season by all accounts, considering the offensive line, his weapons. Obviously, he's got Saquon Barkley, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, and Evan Ingram. I think there's a chance for him to really make a jump as a quarterback next season. However, I do expect Philly to be one of the highest seeds in the NFC, and so I think this is a pretty convincing for the Eagles, but obviously with it being a division game, I think there's a chance for it to be close, and I think be a pretty high-quality game. Anthony?
Yeah, see, I want to point out the Eagles' additions. They've included Marcus Goodwin, Jalen Reagor, Nicole Roby-Coleman through the last few months, and I'd like to go back to the last matchup where it went to overtime. Obviously, Philly kicked the game-winning field goal there. I don't think the Giants have made enough to bring that matchup back to the level of closeness it was back in week 16. I think the gap between these two teams has just only widened as with the Eagles' additions. So I reckon Eagles should have this in the bag for sure, unless we see some great performance by Daniel Jones. I don't see Giants getting through this.
Yeah, I like that point you made, Anthony, about their additions. I think a big question mark about the Eagles last season was that wide receiving core.
Yeah.
And with the additions of some real speed in Goodwin and Rager, it will be an interesting game. After that Monday night OT game, that was a thrilling game, but I really don't see the same thing happening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
for me, like, the Eagles have home field advantage here. They've improved in the off-season. The Giants maybe improved a little bit, but I mean, Eagles are still leaps and bounds ahead of the Giants right now. And even though I don't see the Eagles as a serious contender for the Super Bowl, they're still in a different league compared to the Giants.
You've got to remember how formidable that home field advantage is in Philadelphia. I think in a financial field, it's not a place you want to play. I don't think the Giants can get done in Philly.
I think the Giants did make some pretty nice additions in Andrew Thomas, the offensive tackle out of Georgia, with the 4th overall pick in the draft. I think that really helps their O-line and, by extension, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. I did like the free agency signing of Blake Martinez at inside linebacker. I think that was a position of weakness, and I think they really improved there. So I do expect an improvement from the Giants, but I feel like a bigger improvement will be coming from a healthier Carson Wentz in the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 11, we had the Indianapolis Colts at the Titans in Week 10, another division game. I don't see a lot overly appealing about this one. I think it's destined to be pretty low scoring. These AFC South division games tend to be pretty low scoring, not much, flashy plays. I do think, obviously, an appealing factor is, Phillip Rivers and how he is going to impact this 2020 Colts team. I think there's a good chance he's able to take them to the playoffs. Obviously, these two teams, I think, will be involved in a playoff picture come the end of the season. So I think it'll be tight. We'll see if Ryan Tannehill can improve on a pretty stellar 2019 year. What do you reckon, Emilian?
Yeah, so for me, this has potential to be a great game. I mean, you've got this Titans team who surprised us all last year, only gotten better. Tannehill found his perfect system. They found their perfect quarterback for now. The Colts added Phillip Rivers, and depending on how well he plays in that Colts system, they could be a real threat. I mean, they've got talent on both sides of the ball. The Titans are still my pick to win the division at this point, and this game really will show how good either of these two teams are around the mid-season mark. It's going to be a good one.
Exactly. I reckon Phillip Rivers is obviously the biggest point in this game that we've noted. On the other side, the Titans, with all through the playoffs last year, the only topic of discussion for the Titans was Derrick Henry. I'd like to see if they can utilize him through a more consistent kind of approach to because that was only in a few games. I'd like to see him be used in a different way that could maybe, if you know what I mean,
So you're saying that they shouldn't just give him the ball every day, but
exactly.
He led the league in rushing yards last season. I mean, if you've got a man who does it right, why?
I like to see him utilize other areas of the ball so they become more of a versatile threat, not to the air, to the ground, maybe.
Do you want to see Henry more in a passing game?
Yeah, if you know what I mean.
More of a balanced offense kind of thing.
To see if they're a legitimate threat, to see if their playoff, because their playoff campaign was pretty much just Derrick Henry most of the time. I'd like to see what the new look of the Titans next season.
Well, don't forget about AJ Brown. They've got him at receiver. He's only going to get better from here.
Exactly, yeah.
Just back on the Colts, I don't think, obviously lost in the discussion about Phillip Rivers, I don't think there's been enough talked about the improvement or the potential improvement this season of the Indianapolis defense. Obviously, Darius Leonard was out for a fair portion of last season, and they also added DeForest Buckner from the 49ers, so I think, as well as Xavier Rhodes from the Vikings, we don't know just how good he is anymore, but he will add a veteran presence to that secondary with Malik Hooker. So
Xavier Rhodes didn't have such a good season with the Vikings last year, but I mean, you compare Marcus Peters on the Rams. He was terrible on the Rams. Came to Baltimore and he was one of the best defensive backs in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
in that new system, this could happen to Xavier Rhodes.
Looks like a good matchup on paper, I reckon.
Maybe it needs just a change of scenery, Riff.
I think Derrick Henry will be way too much for the young Colts defense. Last time they played, he had 149 rushing yards. He completely destroyed them. even with the addition of DeForest Buckner, I think Henry will just grind away at that Colts defense, and the Titans defense will get a nice rest. So when Phillip Rivers comes on the field, they'll be more than prepared.
Exactly, yeah.
We had that game ranked at number 11. So now we're into the top 10. At 10, we have the Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 15. Personally, I didn't think this game should be ranked this high on our list. I think really the only appealing aspects of this game are to see how the Raiders play in their new stadium. Honestly, I don't know if this is going to be a very appealing game. The quarterback battle might be pretty average. We don't know who we're going to see at quarterback at this point of the season for the Chargers. We might see Justin Herbert going against Derek Carr. I don't know if that's overly appealing. I think apart from their quarterback situation, I think the Chargers have a really good roster, and I think if they can get the quarterback position sorted out, I feel like they could potentially make a playoff push. Hence, in Week 15, I think this game may have playoff implications. I don't see the Raiders going or challenging for a playoff spot. Arif, what do you think?
I was just going to say, if Justin Herbert doesn't have a rookie slump, I see this game being worthy of the number 10 spot, just because it is late in the season. It's a division game, Week 15. I don't envision Tyrod Taylor leading the Chargers to the playoffs, in my opinion, so I think this game really relies on Justin Herbert, and can he prove that he's worthy of that 6th overall selection.
Yeah. I think even with average quarterback play, I still think the Chargers would win easily against a Raiders team I think would be fading at this point of the season. I feel like they had a very weak draft. They made a couple of decent signings in free agency, but I don't think they did enough to kind of lift them from a pretty average 2019 season.
To me, the Raiders, on offense, they finally got some speed in their receiving core. They got Henry Ruggs with their first pick. So that adds a new threat for the Raiders here.
They did pass on CD Lamb and Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, but we don't know how that's going to pan out for now. Like, Henry Ruggs does have speed, and it's exactly what the Raiders need right now in that passing offense.
Oh, for sure.
On defense, they've got young talent there. They've got Max Crosby and Cleveland Ferrell. They're on the line, and I believe they could have a better sophomore season. And also the addition of Corey Littleton does fix a big problem that the Raiders defense had there. Exactly. I think it's going to be a lot closer than you think, Jack.
Ferrell was quite a non-factor last season. I don't know if we're going to see much out of him this season.
I predict he'll have a sophomore leap.
I'm very interested to see Henry Ruggs. I know the Raiders waited a little bit in the draft to select him. Maybe should have gone and selected a wide receiver earlier. But I really like to see exactly the speed. I reckon he'll be one of, if not the target for Derek Carr for the season. This game will be interesting to see him against Chargers defense, I reckon.
Yeah, it'll be a good one, I reckon.
All right. At number 9, we have another division matchup, the Falcons at the Panthers in Week 8. Again, I don't think that this game should have been rated this highly. I feel like it has the potential to be high scoring with some of the offensive weapons in this game. Obviously, you've got Matt Ryan and that Julio Jones connection for the Falcons. There's Todd Gurley, Calvin Ridley, and then for the Panthers, obviously, you've got the best running back in the game, Christian McCaffrey, and I guess we'll just see how Bridgewater goes in Carolina. But until we know it for sure, I don't know if we can call this game a top 10. I feel like neither of these teams will be challenging for the NFC South title. I feel like one of these teams may be in the playoff picture come the end of the season, but in Week 8, it's kind of a in-the-middle kind of game. I don't see many implications coming off this game just individually, so personally, wasn't in favour of ranking this highly. Emilian?
Yeah, so for me, these are two underdogs of the NFC South. Obviously, I don't think either of these teams are going to win the title. I don't necessarily think they're going to compete for a wildcard position. But I do think they're very evenly matched, and everyone is talking about the Saints and Buccaneers right now. This game is going to fly under the radar for everyone. And honestly, I'm very intrigued to see how the Panthers move forward with this offense. They got Teddy Bridgewater. You can say what you want if that's better or worse than Kyle Allen or Cam Newton. But, he's still got the best running back in the league, and he's not even hit his prime yet. And Christian McCaffrey, absolute beast. I don't see how this is going to be a dull game. It's going to be very exciting. Great offensive talent on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a high-scoring affair.
Yeah, I just think this game is evenly matched. That's the main point for this one. Middle of the season, week 8. I don't think it'll be low scoring or high scoring. I reckon it'll just be a good, solid game. Just both sides of the ball. Won't be too defensive, won't be too offensive. Just a good game to watch.
Last season, the Falcons beat the Panthers by 46 points combined, and I think this time around, with the Panthers completely changing their QB room. I mean, they got Teddy Bridgewater. They got a new backup in PJ Walker from the XFL, so I think this game will be a lot more competitive and definitely an underrated game.
As much as Bridgewater did succeed in that Sean Payton offense in New Orleans, I don't know whether he will succeed under Matt Rule in Carolina just yet. I think it's an unknown. I don't know if this game will be close. I'm really not sure. I think there are too many unknowns with this matchup to be able to determine a top 10. These two teams are underdogs in their division, and I think they're underdogs for a reason. I don't think either have a chance of the NFC South title, and frankly, I don't think either will be making the playoffs.
It was a good point that you raised before about that 7th playoff spot, though. I think there's a possibility one of these teams could be vying for that position.
I think the Panthers have the best chance of that if Bridgewater works out at a quarterback, because if he does, then that's definitely potential scenario. But until then, I'm holding off my expectations for this matchup. However, I do think it has the potential to be good. However, I don't know if it belongs in the top 10. At number 8, we have the Cowboys at the Ravens in Week 12. The Cowboys did improve at a few positions. They drafted CeeDee Lamb, which was a steal. They acquired Gerald McCoy, Dontari Poe, and Haha Clinton-Dix to improve that secondary. But they also lost one of the best cornerbacks in the game in Byron Jones. And I really don't think they stack up with the talent of the Baltimore Ravens, especially after they added Calais Campbell and also got a draft steal in Patrick Queen. Emilian?
Yeah, so the Cowboys this season have every chance to improve on their 2019 form. I mean, Dak Prescott wants a big contract. This is where he proves his worth. This is a Week 12 matchup, so by this time, the Cowboys could establish themselves as one of the top teams in the NFC. While even if that is the case, I don't think they'll be able to handle the Ravens in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson and the rest of that Ravens offense is going to be a bit too much, in my opinion. But I do think this is going to be an entertaining game nonetheless.
Last year, the Cowboys recorded the second most passing yards in the league. Going to Baltimore, trying to maintain that level of elite passing game would be pretty difficult. But again, the addition of CeeDee Lamb could just make the Cowboys even more lethal. I reckon this has the potential to be a shootout game. On the offense for the Ravens, I don't think they're going to be troubled by the Cowboys' defense. But conversely, on the other side of the ball, I reckon there'll be a lot of scoring by the Cowboys with their air attack. So also with Zeke at running back still.
Can't forget about Zeke.
Yeah, exactly. So it has the potential to be a high-scoring game. I'm looking forward to it.
Anthony, sorry, Riff. I completely disagree with your statement that this could be a shootout. I really don't see it at all. I don't think Dak Prescott is deserving of a really big contract. I don't think he's proven much.
Yeah, that's right. What I'm saying is, though, this could be the season where he proves how much he's worth.
Yeah,
at the moment, I don't think he's worth what he wants, but you never know. He could be a really great quarterback now.
I don't see it, and especially in Baltimore with the home field advantages, we've got that lethal defense. I don't think there's any chance he's going to be able to generate much of a passing game. I think if there's any chance for the Cowboys to stay competitive in this game, it'll be with that offensive line and Ezekiel Elliott in the run game. I don't think if the Cowboys could pull this off, it'll have anything to do with Dak Prescott's passing ability. Anthony?
Yeah, you said about the offensive line. That's obviously, in this matchup, probably the most crucial aspect of the game. Because we've seen what Dak at his best can do. Even though in 2016, very good season, taken to the playoffs. Unlucky to lose against Green Bay, but apart from that, 13-3 season, pretty good.
What's he done since then?
Since then, not much, but
we've shown what he can.
Exactly,
do.
that's exactly.
Yeah.
When he gets time, he has the ability to make that offense better. And if the offensive line give Zeke space, then I actually agree with Anthony. I reckon this could be a shootout. In my opinion, it could be reminiscent of the 49ers Saints game last year, in my opinion.
That's a very high
I think
scoring
that's
game.
very lofty
Yeah,
expectations.
I think that
they've
is a
got
bit of
there
a
with-
stretch, but I do see this game maybe being like around the 28-31 scoreline. That could be a possibility.
It's ranked.
I don't
8th.
see it. I think it's a blowout for the Ravens. I don't think it should be ranked at 8, personally.
I've got to say it's ranked 8th on our list. It looks like it should be one of the more hotly contested games.
I guess we'll see how it goes. I mean, we could look back and just see how wrong you guys were. Anyway, so at number 7, we have the Packers at the 49ers in Week 9. It is a 2019 NFC Championship game rematch. And personally, fellas, I foresee a pretty similar result. I think the Packers are on the decline big time this year. There is tension between the Packers front office and Aaron Rodgers, as there has been for the last couple of years now. They had a terrible draft. They did not select a wide receiver for Rodgers. They've continued to neglect him. They haven't helped him. They have not selected a wide receiver in the first round of a draft since they drafted Rodgers. I think that's telling. I think next year he'll be traded, and I think they did not get anywhere close to 13-3. I think they had one of the luckiest 13-3 campaigns last year.
Completely agree.
I don't see them doing it again. I see the 49ers killing them. What do you reckon, Riff?
Honestly, the only reason that this game is ranked where it is just because of the hype from the
rematch.
The rematch.
I agree.
Exactly,
I agree.
that's it.
Yeah, the 49ers put 37 points on the Packers twice last season.
And this is the Packers team that was like boasting about their defense. You know, they had some good players, and the 49ers just still ran all over them.
And they've lost Blake Martinez and Kyler Fackrell
Yeah,
as well in
yeah.
that defense.
They've only gotten worse.
Big point about the 49ers is when you think about their team, they replaced Sanders with Ayuk in the first round. They got Trent Williams for very little draft capital.
Travis Benjamin as well.
And replacing DeForest Buckner with a younger player in Javon Kinlaw is just a really good...
Yeah, they've had a solid offseason.
I mean, if you compare the two teams' drafts, it's really just telling of, I think, where each team is going this season.
Exactly. The Niners did lose Matt Breida, but I don't think that's going to affect too much. Raheem Mostert shown in the playoffs last year, and he was incredible. Especially, exactly, against the Packers in the NFC Championship.
4 touchdowns. And obviously they're going to have a healthy Tevin Coleman from the start of the season compared to a partially injured returning Tevin Coleman. So I think they'll challenge again for the Super Bowl, whereas the Packers I see potentially missing the playoffs. We'll see. But I don't think they win the NFC North, and I think they decline.
Yeah.
At number 6, we have the Vikings at the Saints in Week 16. Another playoff rematch. I'm predicting the Saints to get redemption on Minnesota. I think Minnesota decimated their defense in the offseason. They released Linval Joseph. They no longer have Everson Griffin, Mackenzie Alexander, and Eric Sendejo. They released Trey Waynes. They lost Diggs and Josh Klein on offense. And I think it'll take some time for their replacements to adjust. Anthony?
Yeah, well, we don't often refer to regular season games as having that playoff atmosphere with playoff implications. But with this matchup being so late in the season, with obviously with what happened in the playoffs last year, I just think this has got redemption written all over it. You mentioned all the losses to the Minnesota defense and the offense, losing Stephon Diggs. In the Superdome, there's too much stacked up against Minnesota to pull off a win here. I think New Orleans get revenge here late in the season. I reckon it will be very, very, very important win for them to secure maybe the division, if not the first or second seed or something like that. But we've been proven wrong by the Vikings in the playoffs in this matchup only 6 months ago. So anything is possible, but I'm leaning towards the Saints in this one, in a close game.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that Kirk Cousins has gotten better every season with the Vikings. So he started out pretty badly. He did pretty well last season.
Yeah.
Obviously losing Diggs is big, but I mean, the Saints are at home in the Dome with a crowd that will want revenge. It is going to be loud. Not sure how well Kirk Cousins will play under that pressure, but it is Week 16. Huge playoff implications. This could be the difference between the Vikings winning the division and being a wild card team. Same with the Saints, so it's going to be interesting.
I have to say, with the Kirk Cousins stuff you mentioned, in that game last year, we saw the defense for Minnesota pretty much kept Kirk in that game. I don't see Kirk winning that game last year with a very high scoring offense. For the Saints, they put more than 30 points up on the board in that game. I don't think Kirk Cousins would be able to get the job done, especially with the crowd roaring by that stage. So with all the all the players have lost on the defense, I don't see Kirk being able to dig himself, being able to recover if the Vikings do give up a big lead, or if.
I think this game could definitely decide the division winners in both of their divisions in the NFC North and South, considering it is a Week 16 matchup. I'd just like to point out how incredible the Saints' new look secondary is. I mean, look who they got last season. They got Janoris Jenkins from, was it
The
New
Giants.
York? Yeah, Giants. They got Malcolm Jenkins from the Eagles, and returning on Marcus Williams and Marshawn Lattimore. I think that's a really overpowered
For
secondary.
sure, yeah.
I agree. It is a pretty high-powered secondary. I think that the Vikings are still a playoff team. I'm not as confident, though. I may be wrong. They may be even better than last season, but I'm not sure if we can pencil them in as the standout team in the NFC North.
We also can't forget about Dalvin Cook.
Oh,
as
yeah,
the
of
lead
course.
back.
Correct. But that
They
does
run-
depend on the offensive line, and we'll see how well
that is
that
true.
goes.
I don't think that run game for Minnesota's peaked yet. We could see it peak this season. Could be a huge asset for them.
At number 5, we have the Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks in Week 11. Another rivalry matchup, which is always entertaining, even when the Seahawks have been pretty bad. They've given the Seahawks a run for their money, especially in Seattle. I think, obviously, with the improved roster, the Cardinals, we expect them to make a pretty significant jump.
Yeah.
Obviously, hype only gets a team so far. We saw that with the Browns last season, but I do think they really will improve considerably off last season, especially with some of those off-season acquisitions, which are if you're going to get into.
I was just going to make the point of distinguishing the Cardinals from the Browns in the sense that we looked at the Browns and who they got. They went for the big names, like Odell, Beckham Jr., Jarvis
DeAndre
Landry.
Hopkins isn't a big name.
No, that's not the point though. They really went for their team needs. I don't think the Browns exactly needed a receiver when they got Odell, in the sense that they just went for the big names. I feel like Cardinals really went for their needs, and I think it's a much well-rounded team. I see in this game, I just see it being an injury fest. I mean, it always happens in these Seahawks-Cardinals games. It always goes down to the line, but there's always a key injury in both of these teams. I'll be curious to see if the Seahawks D-line can compete against the speed demon in Kenyon Drake.
Do you think the 2019 Browns should have gone to the season with Corey Coleman at wide receiver?
No, but that's a pretty mute point there, Jack. I don't think Corey Coleman would have made a very big difference compared
That's
to...
probably why they traded for Odell Beckham Jr.
But they did waste a first-round pick, and...
Waste, you reckon?
I reckon they did waste it, because look who they gave up. They gave up a first-round and Jabril Peppers.
I'm getting a little bit distracted. Let's focus on Seahawks Cardinals. Anthony, what are you going to say?
I just want to give you some stats, right? Kenyon Drake, after leaving Miami at the end of Week 8, joined the Cardinals for Week 9 for the rest of the season in Arizona. 814 all-purpose yards, obviously rushing and passing yards, with 8 touchdowns in that 8-game space.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. I know Seattle obviously got a pretty good defense, but that is something to be concerned of. Also, last time DeAndre Hopkins played in Seattle, 224 receiving yards. That is, I don't know if you can repeat that with in Arizona, but it's obviously a very dangerous receiver. It's something to look at, and will make this game very, very good to watch.
Yeah, this is going to be a high-scoring affair, no doubt. It's going to be a back-and-forth shootout. I mean, Kyler Murray now has Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins to throw to. Going to be incredibly dangerous against a relatively weak Seattle secondary. I mean, there was nothing really special about them last season. Kenyon Drake, I mean, he killed the Seahawks when they played in Week 16 last season. But this game, the big factor here is that it's in Seattle in primetime. Week 11, so this is where the Seahawks usually hit their stride. Russell Wilson shines under lights at home. I don't see how he's going to fall behind in this game. It's going to be a back-and-forth shootout. I do predict the Seahawks will win, but it's going to be a very, very entertaining game.
Yeah, Anthony, just putting in your point about the offensive line, not about Kenyon Drake there for the Cardinals. They got great value in Josh Jones, the offensive tackle from Houston, late in the first round to add to improve the offensive line which is not only going to benefit Drake even more, but also Kyler Murray. And I agree. I think we'll see a massive jump for the Cardinals.
For sure, yeah.
I do see a win for the Seahawks. However, I think this game will be close. At number 4, we have the Chiefs at the Bills in Week 6. The Bills' defense has basically reached elite status, and it's continuing to get better, I think. However, their fate this season rests in the hands of Josh Allen. I'm just not convinced he's the guy at quarterback. We will see this season if he can take them to the next level. I don't see it. However, I think the Bills will be playing playoff football next season. I think the Chiefs will win this game in Buffalo in front of a pretty hostile crowd. I don't think it'll be convincing, though.
Yeah, for me, the big X factor here is the fact that the Bills' defense can limit this explosive Chiefs offense under 30 points. If the Bills can limit the Chiefs under 30 points, I believe Josh Allen and that Bills offense definitely has the chance to keep up with the Chiefs. I mean, say this Chiefs score 24 points, why shouldn't the Bills be able to score about 27 on that relatively average Chiefs defense?
This is the point I want to raise. It's a bit different. It might be a bit off topic, but I've got a point to it, right? I was talking before about Kirk Cousins not getting too far behind in New Orleans, and if he gets too far behind, he won't be able to come back and win that game.
Yeah.
I reckon it's pretty similar for Josh Allen, if you know what I mean. Like, if the Chiefs go up by 30 points, Josh Allen, I don't think he'll be able to win this game. So it's a
I don't
very...
think anyone will be able to win by going down 30 points.
Sorry?
I don't think anyone will be able to win going down 30 points.
Yeah.
Well, last Tom Brady in Super Bowl
That was
51.
That was 28-3.
Yeah, but it's similar. Anyway,
I
my
get what
point
you mean.
is it's important for the defense to show up. If you said they are elite, but the second they get behind against an elite
So what
team
you're
like the
saying
Chiefs,
is Josh Allen cannot lead a comeback.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Or a big comeback.
He needs to be able to match Mahomes. I don't think he'll come anywhere close to doing that.
Yeah, I don't think it's about matching Mahomes. The thing is, Mahomes is facing a very good defense in this game. Josh Allen is not. That's the big
The
difference.
Chiefs have a good defense. A very good defense.
It's fairly average. It's fairly
average.
It's not a top 10 defense like the Bills. That's what I'm saying.
It could be ranked in the top 10. I get what your point is. I don't think the Chiefs have an elite
Non-top 10 defenses don't win Super Bowls, though.
I mean, you don't necessarily need a very elite defense with that offense. Like, Chiefs undoubtedly have the best offense in the league.
Without doubt.
Best offense?
Yeah, the Chiefs.
I thought they said Bills, sorry.
No. Chiefs have the best offense. I'm a big fan of the Bills' defense. I don't think they'll be able to stop Mahomes in that offense, but I reckon if they can slow them down, it will be a nice tight
Exactly.
matchup.
Yeah.
I agree. At number 3, we have the Buccaneers at the Bears in Week 5. Early season game, but I think it's a game that could set the tone for each team's season. I think many people continue to sleep on Chicago, especially in the national media. I think they get hard done by a lot of the time. They have retained many crucial pieces on defense, as well as adding in Robert Quinn, which, opposite of Khalil Mack, I think is a pretty lethal duo. And obviously I didn't have Akeem Hicks for much of last season. Assuming he's healthy, I think there's a potential for them to go back to that elite status that they were in 2018. Even last year, I still think they were very, very good, but they were hurt by an offense led by Trubisky who just couldn't stay on the field. And so it really depends on who we see at quarterback for the Bears. We'll see if they can challenge the Buccaneers and how Tom Brady fares against a pretty scary Bears defense. Just keeping in mind, before I hear from you guys, the Bears have never beaten Brady in his career, so that's just another little...
Yeah, they've also
aspect.
played a lot less than because they're in different conferences. But
just a point I'm making.
Yeah, I know. But my point is that this is a huge test for the Bucs. I mean, looking at their opponents before this game, they've got the Saints, the Panthers, the Broncos, and Chargers. None of these teams have elite defenses. Like, Chargers, on paper, they've got a pretty good defense and they have potential. But here, the Bears have proven how good they can be with that 2018 campaign. And this Buccaneers team has been the most hyped team coming into the season. I mean, we've got Brady and Gronk, Mike Evans and Tyler Boyd. No, sorry, not Tyler Boyd. Chris Godwin, my bad. But, I mean, this is the big test here. This is all about the Bears defense versus the Bucs offense. I don't really care all that much about the Bears offense versus the Bucs defense. Still, that's going to be relatively even. I'm really excited for this game.
Definitely. I agree with your point about that. It's definitely about that Bucks new look offense versus that Bears defense. I reckon that's definitely going to define the game. I don't think it's going to be about the Bears and Nick Foles or anything like that.
Yeah, there's not much else I can add to that. It's just on paper looks like a really good head-to-head contest on the defense side for Chicago, and obviously Tom Brady, all the additions at wide receiver, Gronkowski. It looks very enticing. I can't wait for this one.
It's going to be a good one.
Down to our top 2 matchups. At number 2, we've got a very feisty division matchup in the Ravens at the Steelers in Week 12. I think with it being a later game in the season, it does have the potential to have playoff implications. It could help decide who wins that division. I think Pittsburgh have a really strong defense, verging on elite. We saw just how well Minka Fitzpatrick fit in with that defense. Obviously, you've got TJ Watt there, you've got Stephon Tuitt, you've got Bud Dupree. Great defense there. I think it all depends on how Roethlisberger returns. If he can be that kind of guy at quarterback that he has been in the past, I think there's a real chance for him to be, or for a real chance for the Steelers to be up there as one of the better teams in the AFC. Arif?
I agree with that point, Jack. I think there's a big unknown about Big Ben's health, and the real question mark is he even durable enough to be playing in Week 12? Like, we really don't know that, but excluding that, it's going to be a really fast-paced, youthful offense of the Ravens against a fairly equally young, equally quick defense.
Well, in Pittsburgh, there's that hostile crowd, especially being a division game. I think there's a real chance for the Steelers to stage an upset. We'll see how it goes. I really think the Steelers are the biggest threat to the Ravens in the AFC North.
Yeah, for me, in my opinion, the Steelers are the most underrated team going into this season.
Yeah.
I mean, their offense was terrible last season. That was simply because they had Mason Rudolph and Hodges at quarterback. I mean, you have Big Ben in that offense. They're one of the best offenses in the league. Can't deny that.
We'll see just how good he is now.
His connection with Juju Smith-Schuster is incredible, but in Juju's best seasons, that was when he had Antonio Brown on the other side. So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays as a number one receiver.
He'll have all the attention now.
Exactly, with a great quarterback in Roethlisberger. Defense is only going to get better from here. I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick, you saw him last season. Absolutely incredible. He's only going to get better from here. TJ Watt still leading, Devin Bush. This could have huge playoff implications. I do believe the Steelers could still win the division. I'm not opposed to that, and I definitely think they'll compete for a wildcard spot, if not.
I think this game for the Steelers, has lots of like the old shades of 2018, 2017 from a few years ago when they had a healthy Big Ben, they had Antonio Brown, they had Le'Veon Bell consistently performing. The reason I reckon we got this at number 2 is because we see the Steelers returning back towards that form they were in, and obviously the Ravens, being the Ravens coming off the season they had, on paper, it looks like a really good matchup. Obviously, division rivals, very hotly contested. My goodness, have we seen some good games out of this matchup?
Exactly. For me, it's definitely one of my favourite rivalries in the NFL right now. But also, this for me is the number one matchup on this list. I don't agree with our number one pick. I'll get into that a bit later, but I think this should be number one.
Well, the Steelers will have, Big Ben will be coming back to some pretty decent weapons. He's got Schuster there, obviously. He's still got James Washington. And coming from Indianapolis, he's got Eric Ebron there at tight end now as well.
Exactly.
He's got a security blanket, I reckon, in Ebron
there. It's going to be a good one.
And at number 1, we have the Texans at the Chiefs. In Week 1, it is the opening game of the season. And personally, I feel like the mere anticipation of this game alone contributes to it being ranked number 1 on our list. It's a playoff rematch from last season. And it'll be really interesting to see Houston's new look roster. I think too many people are sleeping on the Texans. I like the additions they made. Even after getting rid of Hopkins, David Johnson immensely improves their run game. They've got a deep threat in Brandon Cooks. I think the potential link up there between Watson and Cooks could be pretty lethal at its best, especially considering as long as that offensive line holds up. They've still got Larry Tunsil there, so we'll see how that goes. I think the Chiefs will win. I don't know if it's going to be convincing. Emilian?
For me, this belongs at number 4 on the list. I put it just behind the Chiefs at Bills. For me, the Texans, they've improved at running back, yes, but they've declined at wide receiver. They replaced DeAndre Hopkins with Brandon Cooks. That's the only notable change in the receiving core. David Johnson, yes, can be lethal, but as well, their defense still hasn't improved immensely either. Like, hasn't improved much at all. So when you go back and look at the divisional round, you know, the Chiefs put up 51 points on this pretty much identical defense, right? And I don't see the Texans' offense being as good as it was last season. For me, this is going to be a blowout for the Chiefs. It's a week one game, has no implications at all. Just nothing really special here for me.
I really agree with you on that point about the Texans' defense not really changing too much. So there's nothing to suggest that they wouldn't deal with the Chiefs' offense any better than they did in the AFC divisional round. However, I'd like to look back on the last few kickoff games we've seen. They have not been blowouts at all. None that I can think of have been blowouts. So I really don't think, no matter how well these teams seem like they'll perform, I like to think this will be a close game. Even despite all the explosive Chiefs offense and the Texans defense, I like to think this will be a close one.
Yeah, I agree, Anthony. I don't think it'll be a convincing win. I just do want to rebut your point before Emilian. It's not as if the Texans just have, you know, Brad and Cooks at wide receiver. They've got the potential emergence of Will Fuller, who I think, when he's healthy, he can be a real number one receiver. We saw what he could do when healthy last season. They've also signed Randall Cobb, and they've still got Kenny Stills there as well. So
yeah, I agree with that. I'm just saying that they haven't improved at wide receiver. They still have Will Fuller, no doubt. But that still wasn't enough last season.
As much as losing Hopkins is massive, I don't think that they've declined as much as you think that they have at that position.
They haven't improved, though. My point is they haven't improved.
I know, but with Deshaun Watson at quarterback and the stronger offensive line, they've immensely improved their running game. That defense is still relatively intact. You know, you've got J.J. Watt there. I still think that there's a potential for the Texans to be playing playoff football this season.
They have an incredibly fast offense now. Like, if you think of... Obviously, Hopkins is a big loss, but if you think of who they got Cooks, incredible speed there. Like you mentioned about Fuller, he's a sub 4.3 kind of guy, and if he can stay healthy, I reckon they have a really deep receiving core. Honestly, I look at names there. You got Kiki, QT, like DeAndre Carter. They got some interesting names there.
They are interesting names. Anthony?
It's interesting to see all the comments you guys have made about Will Fuller. Obviously, last few seasons we've been playing behind DeAndre Hopkins. It'd be interesting to see if the level of receptions he gets increases or is spread more evenly.
I definitely think that there'll be a more even spread on targets for Deshaun Watson.
But maybe
I think Fuller gets the lion's share of targets there.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
I don't think he can be like that number one guy.
Yeah.
I reckon it'll be
I think it'll be more like the Rams' offense was when they had Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp. It'll be shared evenly. It'll be a good offense. I just don't think it's on the same level.
As long as Watson's throwing the ball, I think there's a chance for him to be just as good as an offense. Anthony, before we wrap it up?
I just think that if there's equal amount of receptions, equal amount of distribution around all the wide receiver core, you could see Will Fuller just... I reckon he could have a breakout season, like a true breakout season. And
if he stays healthy. He has not played a full 16
That's a
game
good
season
point, though.
Yeah.
Interesting point.
And where is the Texans guy now? Like, who's that guy? They don't have that...
Deshaun Watson is that guy.
No, at wide receiver.
I think Will Fuller will be the guy.
You reckon
I think he'll be the guy.
They'll go to him?
I think he'll have a massive season.
I hope
That's what
he
I think.
stays
That's my
healthy
prediction.
because he's like, I'm a big fan of Will Fuller. I just hope he stays
I really think all the points we've brought up, especially the wide receiver core for the Texans, the Chiefs, worthy number one candidate, I reckon.
Well, that wraps up our list of all 16 2020 Thursday night football games. Next week we'll be doing Sunday night football games, so make sure you stay tuned for that next Saturday. Thank you for listening to our debut podcast of the TouchDownUnder podcast. Make sure, if you haven't already followed our Instagram, it is touch.down.under, and our Twitter is at the TDU podcast. So make sure you leave us some feedback there. We're so glad you could join us. Till next time.